Hello everyone and welcome to yet another session here at the DIF 2018. During the past 3 weeks, we've been posing the question, what if we could redesign everything? And the last day of the DIF is no different. In this session, we are connecting all the way to Estonia to hear more from a panel of 5 on the importance of the startup ecosystem in accelerating a shift to a circular economy. As Estonia ranks 3rd in Europe regarding their highest number of startups per capita, numerous accelerators and development programs are aimed at scaling up and empowering the national startup ecosystem. The problem, however, a very low percentage of these programs involve principles of circular business models. But what if circular economy principles could be weaved in early stage phases of the startup journey? Well, we hope to shed some light on this matter today, and the discussion will be facilitated by the founders of Circular Economy Estonia, Kaisa and Mairi, whose goal is to make circular economy a new normality in Estonia. They are accompanied by 2 renowned experts on circular economy and 1 representative from the Ministry of Environment in Estonia. So it's a great bunch of people and it will be a great discussion. But before diving in, I would say to all of you out there that have insights, have questions, please send them through on thinkdiff.co on the comment box, and please do let us know via the hashtag ThinkDiff on Twitter as well, and I'll make sure that some of the questions will be sent live in Tallinn, where we are live right now. So I'll hand over to you, Kaisa and Mairi.
Hi, everybody in the live audience. We also have here a live audience with us. We're happy that you have joined us, and we are sure we're going to have a great time discussing here the circular economy matters in Estonia. And as for the introduction, as Bledar already said, I'm one of the founders of Circular Economy Estonia, and here's also Kaisa. But maybe more importantly, it would be interesting to know who has joined us in the panel. So maybe all of you can introduce yourselves with 1-2 sentences. So Kerli, let's start with you.
Hello, my name is Kerli Kant-Väss, and I have experience with sustainability and circular economy the last 15 years. I lived 15 years abroad, primarily in Denmark and US, and the last 2 years I'm now back in Estonia and helping startups and local social enterprise and some other organizations to get on the circular economy journey.
Okay, thank you. Harri?
Hello to everyone. My name is Harri Moora and I'm working for Stockholm Environment Institute Tallinn Center as a program director. And our institute has been one of the research institutions in this region working on circularity issues already more than 20 years. And I have been part of this development quite a long time. So starting from cleaner production in early 90s and ending with circularity issues today, this has been quite a long journey, and I have been very happy of being part of that.
Mihkel?
Hello, my name is Mihkel Grusberg, and I'm working in Ministry of Environment and mainly with circular economy and resource efficiency, and that has been already 4 years.
Great. Just a brief overview what's the agenda for us. So we're gonna talk a little bit about what is the startup ecosystem in Estonia, and then we're gonna dive deep into the topic of circular economy in general, and then what should we do in Estonia about it and where should we focus on. So I would give a word to Kaisa, who based on her own experience can enlighten us about the startup ecosystem in Estonia.
Yeah, thanks. I think all the Estonians already know that Estonia is the land of startups and the land of unicorns. Even the live audience might know companies like Skype, TransferWise, Click and Grow. So we have a lot of brain potential here, and that's what we need to use, and that's what we are doing. But as I mentioned before, we got the statistics from Startup Estonia that there are about 550 startups in Estonia in total. And that's actually quite a lot, as Estonia has a population only of 1.3 million. But only 30 or 40 of them are green startups. So that's definitely a number that we aim to increase. And there are quite many development programs, but most of them don't involve circular business models, or they don't really teach you how to build your business in a sustainable way, or how to have a greater impact for the society. So that's something that we see is a problem, and that needs to change. For example, there is even some competitions or development programs that focus on resource efficiency, but you already have to have an idea and a team before. And I have so many friends who have wanted to take part, but they don't have a team. They don't know where to find like-minded people, and they don't have an idea. So you need to have input before you can have an idea, before you know like which problems to solve. And this is what we are going to discuss today.
And thank you, guys. Maybe from here I would ask our panelists or experts or our guests, how we want to call you, that so we know that Estonia is pretty big startup land, as it gives also, it employs around 3,300 people. But now, to put that aside for a second, I would ask you actually, what do you think could be the potential of Estonia regarding circular economy? Like, what can we do as Estonia? And your personal opinion, or whatever opinion you have on that, or a vision, it would be really good to hear. And maybe we can start with Mihkel.
Well, I think the potential, or actually the question is, circular economy will happen, and what is more is that actually the circular economy is nothing new as a
Mihkel,
concept.
can you speak a bit more to
Yes.
the microphone?
This, like this, okay. So basically, circular economy is nothing new. It's just rephrasing something we have done for many years, but now it's more structural way. And from ministry side, of course, we are working to have strategy and action plan on circular economy, but this will, of course, take some years. So we hope that by end of 2020, these will be adopted. And but I think the focus is more how we can find those actions that make or make this transition happen. And the Estonian potential definitely is in solutions that are so-called niche solutions, because we can't compete with large companies and large markets. But we are very flexible, and as you mentioned, we have a lot of innovation-minded people. So it's important how all these things go together. So to sum up, it's just we need to find the focus that is achievable for Estonia, and it seems like it's local solutions or niche products and services. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Harry, what is your vision, or what do you think about Mihkel's?
Yeah, when it comes to the state, let's say, approach or view, I think it's very important that the state is also providing a reasonable framework for companies to work and innovate within the sustainability area. And of course, circularity is one of those where there is lots of potential and interest. And this is something which is important for most of the Estonian companies, because Estonia is small. We don't have too much resources. We have to go out with our products and services. This means that we have to really be very resource efficient, and circular economy is a great chance to make business for Estonian companies. I would say this is maybe for most of the companies the only way to make business successfully in the future. But potential-wise, of course, the startup ecosystem, which mainly is based on our IT kind of sector which is booming and which is definitely one of the top level sectors. This has lots of and great potential to contribute into the circular economy business models. There are many opportunities, and I think quite many of them, they are already working or they have taken into account circularity aspects, most probably not consciously, or let's say this is not their main strategy because they have not really systematically recognized that, but they kind of work on that. So I think there is lots of potential by just raising their awareness and really giving them more strategic view, more systematic view. I think the outcome would be even better than it is today. But I don't want to focus only on startups, because as we know, most of the startups, they are usually working on small issues. So if we want to save the world, so we have to make big steps, and we have to really focus on large-scale problems and large-scale companies. So I think Estonia has very interesting mix of different companies. We have this startup, small and medium-sized companies who are very flexible, ready to go for new innovative solutions, developments. And then Estonia is very nice in testing as a testing ground, so it's really a high potential. But at the same time, if we look on the big picture, what is going on in Estonia and circularity as a country, as a state, and we see that we are not circular at all. So we are, circularity point of view, one of the worst ones in Estonia, in the world, I would say, in European Union, definitely. And the reason is our resource-intensive industry. First of all, our oil shale industry. Also, we have a very large construction material industry and several other resource-intensive industries, but they're not too big. So I would say that we and Estonia can really contribute in making the large-scale resource-intensive industries also more sustainable and circular. So I think we have a great chance to contribute both on startups and small businesses who deal with specific small problems, but at the same time we have also a chance to contribute into the real problem by improving the circularity of large-scale companies as well.
Okay, thank you. We will definitely dive deeper into those topics, but Kerli, can you give your vision as well?
So my vision is perhaps a bit external, since most of my experience is from abroad, and also knowing what's happening abroad more than here. But the last 2 years have given me the kind of sense what's happening, and I think Estonia is dynamic and small, and it gives a great opportunity to actually jump on the wagon much faster than many other countries. As Harry said, we are not very circular, but we have opportunities to become circular, and startup community is definitely something that can exploit that opportunity. I think we as a country, we should look what's already been done abroad, like Finland, Scandinavia, Holland, many other countries, so that we are not reinventing the wheel. There are very good instruments, toolboxes, initiatives out there that we could learn from, both on helping companies, but also in terms of legislation and different initiatives. So I have a big vision. I work primarily right now with textiles, and I see a great opportunity to make the Baltic region circular within textiles. So
that sounds great. You mentioned good examples, and I would like to hear. I know you have a lot of experience from Denmark and from abroad, but also, of course, from Estonia. So maybe you can tell us a bit about some very good examples that you think that could be implemented in Estonia as well, for example.
Well, I think the closest neighbor we could look at is Finland, and there are quite many interesting startups within circularity, and we can see that many of those actually are based on the long-term research and research that now they're commercializing and bringing the startup to the market. That's definitely something that we could look what's happening in our universities and what are the ideas that could be commercialized. Finland, for example, has a very good initiative within textiles. It's called Teleketju, where they have brought together companies, municipalities, public sector, startups, research institutions for the circular textile ecosystem building. So startups, they have a big role in circularity, but of course they are very often experimental, and to make the fundamental changes very often that are needed for the circularity, we need many different stakeholders to collaborate.
Yeah, of course, thanks. Harri, I know you also have many good examples. Can you give us one, for example, or two?
Of course, textile is one of the what we say flagships in Estonia, because I think here we have been also quite successful in implementing the circular business models abroad. So I think most of the Estonians have heard about Red House, the fashion designer who has really managed to implement the production waste based upcycling method in mass production, which is always a tricky thing, because if you would like to do something on circularity area, I think you should really again go for large scale, and this is something which is especially important in those sectors where the scale and the impact is large, such as textile industry. But we have also many other initiatives going on, and as I said, not often or most often these companies don't make it systematically. So there are different approaches, mainly related to product design, and these are the first steps. But of course, it is important that you start to do that. The other thing is where there is definitely some space for Estonia. This is, I would say, this fixing society, fixing things, renovating. And other things which are related to skills, specific skills, which we tend to lose slowly, because this used to be very common that we used to repair and fix our things ourselves. So I think here we have also quite many nice examples, and potential here in Estonia is definitely higher. So we can be the ones who a little bit help the more developed countries to again learn and renovate or restore the old-fashioned repair and recycling society.
Yeah, thanks. This is definitely one thing that I noticed also when I lived in Germany. There are so many repair cafes everywhere, and they are like small businesses in general, and somehow they all manage to survive. So this is definitely something that I believe is coming back. Mihkel, does the ministry have any country that you take as a role model, or any role models that you would like to have?
Well, first of all, it's very difficult to just take from other country, because actually I don't know if there is any country in the world, but in the European Union there is not such a country that is the capacity or the population as us, and then also the low density of population is also a problem that some solutions might not work. Of course, we see what Finland is doing, and we have some networking, or actually we have different networks for these actions in European Union level also. So we will watch carefully what's going on. But I wanted to say one more thing is actually when it comes to startups, then I think for Estonian startups, the key is actually that they need to establish collaboration or partnerships with well-established companies, because this is also something that is missing, that they don't have like output to someone, and it's very difficult to go to some other country to sell your solution. So this is also something we will definitely look in strategy, but this is maybe something that from startup world in Estonia needs also elaborated more.
Yeah, thanks. I would like, this is a great comment, and that leads us to another topic. is that where should we start with the circular economy? Is it from established companies, as some of you said? Is it starting with students or even like from school students? Or is it like the civil society? Is it the politicians? Like where should we start? What do you think, Kerli?
Well, I think we should start everywhere. We need them at all levels. But of course, if we take the established companies, then it's more difficult to disrupt the existing business model because it's usually risky. You need to break the existing norms and traditions and procedures. You have to change your value proposition, the way you are communicating with the customers. And that's why it's very often recommended to embark on a circular journey with a startup or new venture as a spin-off from a company, or finding a startup, as Michael said, that who would like to develop a product and service and try it as an experiment, because it's the circular solutions very often they do disrupt the existing ones, and we need to think out of the box. We need a different mindset and the space where you can design that value proposition. Is it service or product? So in that sense, I think startups have a crucial role, and that they should be linked for these initiatives or startup accelerators. They should try to find companies to collaborate.
Okay, so you think we should start from everywhere, but it would be a good idea to start with startups and educating the young people, and then we need collaboration.
Well, the startups have a crucial role because, I mean, in the world, in the linear world, we have so many products and services that are not circular, and startups are the ones who are designing new solutions, either product or service. And as one of the cradle-to-cradle gurus have said, William McDonough, that designers should stop being a problem. They should start solving problems instead of designing problems. And that's where startups are. Startups, they are trying to create new products, but they should do it based on circular economy principles. The startups I have been mentoring here in Estonia, I've sensed that some of them don't know what circular economy is. So if we could just give them so much insight and awareness around that. It's a complex and comprehensive topic, but and they can't be experts on circularity, but they should see the bigger picture. Where do their service or product actually go into? Would that serve the circular economy or the linear economy?
I would actually ask here a bit if you've been already, or you've been coaching or mentoring teams on the circular business models or creating the circular business model, then maybe you can enlighten us like how different it is from a regular business model. Like what do you need to keep in mind to get a circular business model?
Well, every business model starts with a value proposition. What is it you're doing? What value you're creating? Is it just a specific customer needs, or is there a greater value as well? And the second is that product or service, you should have a full life cycle perspective. Because again, from a design perspective, 80% of the product's environmental footprint and the destiny, the length of the life of that product is argued that is decided at the design phase. So these choices and decisions are extremely important. And after the value proposition, of course, comes who are your customers, what are your revenue streams, who do you need to collaborate, and so on. But the crucial is, what problem you're solving, whose problem is it, and would it serve the greater purpose than just a human need?
Yeah, definitely. Like that's the first thing that also they teach to all startups, like what's the problem that you are solving, although still quite often it's the products that are like very popular are just nice to have products, and that's actually a thing that could be solved. But
maybe just one thing that even if value proposition is circular, I think startups also need to understand the ecosystem. Where does that solution fit? Does it actually, maybe it creates another problem in the next part of the value chain. So having the big picture and understanding the impact of the product.
Yeah, thanks. I will also ask Harry, like, what do you think? Where should we start? Because as I understood before, you said we should focus on bigger industries first.
No, I said that we can't really focus only on small scale or let's say startups because then you don't cover most probably the bigger problems immediately. But startups play really an important role in building up a kind of ecosystem, which if you have it critical size, which also influence the other companies. And first of all, it will influence and reflect the needs of the clients, or basically us, the public, so to say. I fully agree what Kerli mentioned and said, but all this understanding the life cycle of your product, understanding the value proposition and everything like that, these are the interesting things, and then it's common understanding in the startup landscape, so to say. But if you want to enter into the circularity or sustainability area, then you need to know, or then you have to have some sort of understanding and knowledge, education, let's say so. So it's a bit late to start to talk about principles of sustainability and education if you have already graduated and ready to jump into the startup world to save the world, so to say, and make huge money. And I think it has to be more part of our education system. This is exactly so. It should be part of our schools, but even more, it has to be really part of the crucial education. And from my own experience, I can say that most of the universities, even those who teach those very important people such as designers, engineers, don't really give a systematic knowledge and education on that area. So this has been for me a little bit like a shock when mentoring startup people, young people. Maybe they have heard about circular economy, but they totally lack understanding of basic principles of sustainability, or the first time hear what is the life cycle. So if this is the case, then we have really missed a lot. So I think it's a bit too late to start to kind of grab your understanding in that area. So there has to be total change in the, or shift in the educational system to really prepare people so that that they are ready to jump into the startups, but also being conscious consumers and really asking this kind of products.
Thank you, Harry, for that input. Technical comment that if you could all speak more to the microphone, then our audiences are more happy.
Yeah.
Don't forget, we have an audience. And actually, the education, I'm really liking that you brought it up, and that it shouldn't be only for the startups, but in general, we should already start educating our little kids in the kindergarten about, like, for example, just like what happens with garbage after they throw something out, and then more a structural and the conceptual, like, teachings about sustainability and circular economy in the older ages. Of course, there are already schools who do that, but this usually comes from their own initiative, that there is somebody who is more aware of the topic and is pushing it through, but it doesn't come on a state level, definitely not yet. But maybe one day, Mihkel, tell us.
Well, actually, I think you're mistaken in that sense that actually every year there are a lot of small-scale projects for, especially for schools, that can apply for study trips. So Environmental Assessment Center is putting a lot of effort for next generation training. But the question is, of course, it has a space for improvement, and then the question is that we have done it for so few years yet that it has had any major impact in society. But regarding to the question, where do we start? Well, actually, circular economy is something that this is a possibility. It's not like a mandatory thing you have to have. I mean, this is, of course, as a successful economy, you should have that. But and that's why state can't put regulations in place and say you have to do like this. No, it's also something that needs to work in collaboration, and also a lot of initiative needs to come from private sector, but also from society.
Okay, thanks. That was actually what I wanted to ask. Like, if the ministry already have a vision, like, where are you going to start? Because I heard you want to set some indicators and all this not so interesting stuff, but where are you actually going to start? Do you already know?
Well, when it comes from a policy perspective, then always you need to map first. Otherwise, if you don't know how to measure that, what has been already done, or where the state or the level you are in, then it's very difficult to move on. We are going to do at the start of the next year, or the first half of the next year, a mapping exercise, a mapping study. And after that, we can have really like really the work where we can go, or what are those sectors, what are those measures where we actually have potential. Because Estonia is so small country that we can't develop in all the fields same level. So we need to find the best ones, or the suitable ones.
I would thank you, Mihkel. That's really good to know that the state is mapping the situation and working on it. And I would ask now maybe Harri and Kerli, that you both mentioned that you've been mentoring some startups or teams. That in your perspective, like, what is the status quo with the circular economy in the startup ecosystem? Like, as Harri mentioned, that people don't really know what it is about, or how does it come that they want to do like a circular business, or they're working on something sustainable, but they don't really know what it is? Like, is it coming in from the teams? Is it coming from the programs? Where's the, what is your point of view on that? Don't forget the microphones.
No, my own understanding is that we have, let's say, the startup society, and then all different support schemes and other organizations initiatives have been focused on more on, let's say, on those issues and business areas which, and there is no really the circularity or sustainability being yet as part of the programs or other measures. If we look again towards to our neighbors, especially in the northern side, we can see that in Finland, for example, these circular programs for startups have been there already more than 5 years, basically from the very beginning of when the circular economy as a concept emerged, so to say. So you have to really react quickly, and I think partly it's because the startup society, or the ones who are running that, I think it's very much mirroring who is actually the initiator, who is the leader in there. So I think there is not too much of those people who have a, let's say, environmental or sustainability background. So, and this is partly, of course, the reason of funders, and some of the funds have been provided by the state, first of all, Ministry of Economy, and unfortunately, here in Estonia, and most probably in many other similar countries, those issues are dealt with different ministries, and circular economy in Estonia is very much an issue, responsibility area of Ministry of Environment. But of course, Ministry of Environment don't have any means and steering, let's say, possibilities to influence the business sector or economic sector. So I think this is one thing which has to be really changed, so that if we talk about circular economy, then we should really understand this is part of the economy, business, and this has to be taken over by the state as such, and it can't be really an issue, a matter of one ministry. So this has to be changed. This has to be integrated into the, let's say, startup landscape and support scheme in wide sense, so that it has to be there. And it's interesting at the same time, when you really look on innovation and startups, then you actually realize that majority of them, they are working on eco-innovation. Somehow you can relate most of the innovation to ecological, or let's say sustainability issues. This is there, even though if you don't name that straightforward, but it's there. And I see that the startups really play a significant role there. In Finland, it's approximately 30% of the companies dealing with sustainable and innovation. They are the startups. I think in Estonia it might be more. So it's very important that it will be built on the countrywide, state level, and that also these initiators, leaders who actually are behind of the startup landscape, that they really take it as one of the major strategic issues, which should be part of any program, any support scheme, a startup platform, and so on.
Okay, thank you. Very valid points again. Cooperation between different ministries, very important. Mihkel, I hope you're listening. But I know you know that already. But Kerli, what about your experience?
I fully agree with Harry on the ministry point that we should bring it to the state level. Regarding the startup community, based on my personal experience, I also think that we have quite a bit of quite many startups or initiatives that focus on environment and eco-innovation and resource efficiency. And but maybe the perspective on the startup initiatives and support schemes could be broadened. As circularity has more, it has also sharing economy, product service systems, local social enterprise focuses on repairing other business models. So perhaps broadening the scope of these startup schemes and initiatives and support functions.
Good. And then we would have time for one last question to you. So what do you think? Should we include the circular economy and sustainability topic in the startup world in Estonia?
Yes, I think we all agree on that, and this is important. It has to be there because it's part of the natural way of making business. So it has to be clear for everybody, not only for decision makers, but also startuppers, everybody. So this is important that this will be clear and understandable and kind of natural. So then I think we don't need to organize this type of events and discuss about that.
I would also say absolutely, because it will safeguard the competitive advantage of Estonian economy, and also giving an opportunity to bring the creativity and the innovative mindset out to a more commercial scale worldwide.
Mihkel?
I would add that maybe this will also bring some new, fresh people to startup world more. That there's also a chance to widen the scope of the startup culture we have in Estonia.
Thank you. Ledar, word to you. Do you have any questions from the audience?
I have indeed some questions from the audience, and I have just a selection from them for each and one of the panelists that have joined us today. First and foremost, I would like to thank you all for joining and for having this brilliant discussion on the situation in circular economy in Estonia. And I would like to direct myself to Kerli first about the how businesses can work with startups. We have a question from Twitter pointing to how these partnerships could look like in the starting phases. What needs to be done?
That's not a quick answer here, but of course, from a startup company perspective, I would, depending which industry you're working, I would spot a company who is innovative in the field, a big established company, and create a dialogue, see what is actually happening in that industry, what are the problems and the bottlenecks turning to circular, and then coming with an ideas. creating perhaps that value proposition collectively with that company, and creating an experimental project which can be then evaluated, and if there is potential, then later on scaled up. I think we can see these startup big company collaborations all over the world in different sectors, and it's happening, and it's strongly recommended.
Great, thank you very much, Kelly, for that answer. I think the person who asked the question has a little idea on how that could look like. The next question would be for Harry, and that would be if Estonia should replicate nations that have already started to fund the implementation of circular economy at scale, perhaps in the same way that Finland has done. Harry, you mentioned Finland a few times during this discussion. Or do you think that Estonia should have its own characteristics and approach to scale circular economy?
I think it's always wise to look what's going on in other countries. And of course, here in Estonia, we very carefully look on what is going on in Finland. I think it's also important that to integrate or at least learn from them and even cooperate, because there's lots of business relationship is one thing. And there is also the business community cooperation mindset is very much the same. So I would really like if Estonia would at least copy parts of the Finnish system. And this gives us also a possibility to make business in the future, because as I said, the market is small here in Estonia, and then starting and testing and cooperating with Finnish partners, companies, I think this is extremely good starting point for many startups.
Thank you very much for that, Harry. And the last question that I would have would be in terms of policy, and that would be for Mikael. You mentioned the national roadmap for circular economy that is currently in the making and is expected to be effective by 2020. And the person that asked the question addressed the startup ecosystem and asked, how does the national roadmap address the startup ecosystem, and how important is the startup ecosystem in the policy making in terms of circular economy?
Well, first of all, as we haven't done the mapping exercise, it's very difficult to say. But of course, as it seems, it has quite high potential in Estonia. So, of course, it should be linked there. But again, I mean, with the process, we will try to find the best potential for Estonian context. So hopefully this will also come up.
Great, thanks, Mikael. And the last question would actually be to the facilitators today. Kaisa and Mairi, what is going on with the Circular Economy Estonia, and what's to come next for our people out there that are joining us live right now?
Thank you for the question. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of potential. We have 1,000 ideas, and we have narrowed it down, of course. And what we are planning now is in 2019 to start with intensive circular economy trainings, where we bring together on one hand young professionals or students, and on the other hand companies or startups with like real problems that they are trying to solve regarding circular economy or sustainability in that sense. And then the young professionals gonna get educated hardcore on what is circular economy, how to create circular business models, etc. And then they will also find solutions to the real problems of the company. So this is one thing we are planning for 2019 now.
Yeah, and another thing about this international training course, that it's international. So everybody watching online, you can join us as well. So the most smart thing would be just follow our Facebook page. We'll put all the information there so you know when to apply.
And of course, let's not forget the most important thing also what are we discussing here, that we're gonna approach all the startup things in Estonia and help them to put the circular economy topics into their incubators and accelerators and all the other programs.
Thank you very much, Mairi. Thank you so much, Kaisa, for facilitating this brilliant discussion today. Thanks to all the panelists for coming out and discussing the importance of circular economy in Estonia. Thanks to the live audience that is currently live in Tallinn joining this discussion as well. And lastly, thanks to the live audience that is joining via thinkdif.co or the YouTube stream and listening to what these guys had to say about circular economy and its acceleration in the nation of Estonia. You heard a little bit about collaboration being very important. It could be startups, it could be businesses that start this movement going forward. And there's a lot more to do, but we have a great starting phase in Estonia right now. And the Circular Economy Estonia will be there to assist everyone in moving forward, as you just heard. So for me right now, this is all I have to say. I would like to thank you all again and see you very soon again.